Welcome back. In this video, we're picking up where we left off, this time focusing on how to use script nodes in phasereditor v4 to trigger sound effects and music in your game. Script nodes let you visually organize and trigger sounds when players interact with your game. If you're not familiar with script nodes yet, I recommend checking out my other video that does a full deep dive into how they work. I've linked it in the description down below. And if you missed part 1 of this audio series, where we covered loading and controlling sounds through code, you'll find that link there too. So now that we've seen how we can manually modify our settings on our sound manager through code, we're going to take a look at script nodes. So script nodes are a great way for you to trigger sounds and modify your sound settings from your game logic. For our first example, we're going to take a look at our UI element here, where we have this prefab we can click on. When we click on it, all we're doing right now is we're just updating the texture on our game object. We want to connect this into our sound settings. To do this, let's come over to our code. And so inside our project, we have the script nodes base and quick libraries, as well as some custom scripts we'll use for our project. Our first script we're going to take a look at is our toggle mute script. So we open up our toggle mute script.js file. Inside the script node, inside our execute method, all we're doing is we're just taking our mute setting on our sound manager and we're toggling it to the opposite value. So to use this script node, let's go into our title scene. So for our UI element here, this is a prefab for our project. So if we go into our prefabs folder, let's open up our audio prefab.scene file. And so currently in the scene, we have this image game object, and we have this on pointer down script node. And so when we click on our game object, all we're doing is we're updating our texture. So now if we want to connect our script node for updating our mute property, if we right click on our on pointer down script node, let's go down to scripting. We can do add script, or we can use our shortcut. Under our scripts folder, let's do our toggle mute script. We're going to add that script. So if we save our project, let's come back to our browser. So now if we click on our UI element, our background music should stop playing for our game. If we click it again, it should start playing. Let's disable our audio and transition to our battle scene. Once we get to our battle scene, our background music should start playing, but because our game state is muted, we don't hear that. Now if we click on our prefab, we should now hear our battle music. So besides using script nodes to modify our sound settings, we can also use those to play sound effects in our game. So currently in our battle scene, we have these 2 attack buttons that'll play these attack animations for our monsters. We have sound effects that we like to play once a player clicks on one of these buttons. And so to do this, once our player clicks on one of our buttons, we're going to emit an event that we can listen to in our script node, and we'll use that to play our sound effect. To do this, let's come back to our code, and let's open up our battle scene. How our scene is set up, when our player clicks on one of our buttons, this is calling a method on our class called handleAttackSelected. So if we open up our battle.js file under our scenes folder, and if we go into our handleAttackSelected method, we'll see this is similar to our settings where we're receiving the option that the player clicked on. So in our code, if our option is ice, we're playing our ice animation, and if our option is slash, then we're playing our slash animation. So now, to wire up our logic, we're going to emit a custom event that we can listen to on our scene here, and then use that to play our sound. So to emit a custom event, we'll do this to reference our phaser scene, we'll do events to reference our events manager, and now we're going to do emit to emit an event, and now for our event name, we'll do custom play sound, and now for our event, we can pass additional arguments, and we're going to pass in the key of our audio file that we want to play. We'll pass in ice. Let's copy this line of code. Let's come down here. We'll paste it below for our slash, and we'll update our key name, and we'll do slash. So now we're emitting this custom event. We need to update our battle scene to listen for that. So if we click on our scene folder, or click in our outline inspector here, I'm going to use my shortcut data script node. So now for our script nodes, let's search for on general event. So this is one of our core script nodes from our quick library. What this script allows us to do is we can listen for any event in our game from one of our event methods. So now for our event name we want to listen for, we're going to want to copy our custom event here that we emitted. So let's copy our custom play sound. We'll paste that here. Now for our event emitter, we don't want this to be on our game object. We want this to be on our scene.events, since we're emitting that from our scene's event emitter. And so for our event listener, we don't want to choose once since we want to listen for multiple events. So now that we're listening for our events, we can add a child script node. So I'm going to use my shortcut. Now under scripts, let's do play audio action. So now if we choose our new script node that was just added, we'll see over our inspector, by default, we can provide an audio key for the file we want to play when our execute method on our script is called. However, this won't work for our current setup because we don't want to have a hard-coded audio key to play. Instead, we want to rely on our arguments that'll be passed from our event listener to our child script node. That argument will have the key of our audio file that we want to play. So how this works is for on our event script, for our event listener, once we register our event listener, we're calling the execute children method on our base script node class. This execute children method is going to receive any arguments that were passed to our event listener. So for our case, our audio key that we want to play, and then for each of our child game objects, it's going to call that execute method and pass those arguments. And so to see how this works, let's go into our custom play sound action script. In our execute method, I'm going to do console.log. I'm just going to log out our arguments that our method receives. If we come back to our game, let's refresh our game. Let's go into our battle scene and click on one of our attacks. When we click our attack, we'll see our log message with the arguments our method is receiving. And so we'll see for our child script node, we're receiving our arguments that include the key of the audio file we want to play. So since our arguments have the key of the audio file we want to play, and we want to use that instead of our audio key property in our script node, we need to override the default behavior of our script node. To do that, we're going to use a user component from our script node library. So if we choose our play audio script node, if we right click, we go under scripting, let's do add a user component, or we can use our shortcut. We want to choose our action target config component. Once we add that component to our script node, we should see it show up in our inspector. What the target action component does is it allows us to provide a hint to our script nodes about what object is the target of the action we're providing. So in our user component, we can choose our target. By default, it's going to choose our game object that our script node is attached to. For our use case, we want to target our arguments that are passed to our execute method. So we want to choose our first argument since that's the only argument we're passing in our array. And so how this works is if we come over to our custom play sound action script, we can use this get action target object method on our base script node class, and now this method refers to that action target component, and based on the arguments that are selected in our inspector, it's going to return that target to us. So for our example, since we chose argument 1, it's going to use those arguments that were passed to our execute method and choose the first one from our array. So if we copy our console log statement, let's paste it down here. Let's update it to log out our audio key from args variable. If we come back over to our browser, if we refresh, let's go into our battle scene. If we click one of our attacks, we'll see we're grabbing that first element from our array. Now if we come back to our battle scene, let's do argument 2. Let's save. If we refresh our browser, now what should happen is we should return undefined since we don't have a second argument in our array. So now for our example, let's update this to be argument 1. If we save, let's come back to our browser. Now when we choose one of our attacks, we should hear our sound effect play. Nice. Finally, for our play audio action script, we're going to take a look at how we can modify our sound settings for our sound that will play. So previously in our code, when we played our background music, we were able to set our properties for things like loop and our volume for that particular sound instance. We can use user components to get the same type of functionality with our play audio action script. To do this, let's use our shortcut for adding our user component. Now for our user components, we'll want to go under our quick.audio folder, and here this will give us 2 components, one for our volume and one for our loop. I'm going to choose our volume config and add that component. Now in our inspector, we'll see our new component. Now we can toggle the volume for our sound effect that we want to play. Likewise, if we want our audio file to loop, if we choose our script, let's add a new user component. We'll do our audio loop config. Let's add that component. And now in our inspector for our new component, we have our loop property. So if we save, let's come back to our browser. Let's refresh. Let's come into our battle scene. If we choose one of our attacks, now when our sound plays, our settings that we chose for our script node should be applied. So our attack sound effect shouldn't be as loud, and it should keep looping since that's the settings we applied. So I'm going to set loop to be false. I'm going to update our volume to be 1. If we save, let's come back to our browser. If we refresh and go into our battle scene, we choose one of our attacks. Our sound effect should only now play 1 time and at its original volume. And that's how you trigger audio using script nodes in phasereditor v4. Whether you're playing a sound on a jump or triggering music during an event, script nodes give you a clean and flexible way to handle audio logic visually. If you missed part 1, be sure to go back and watch it to learn how to set up and control audio directly through code. Thanks for watching, and check the description for the source files and more phaser editor tutorials.